Good evening, my fellow night owls, drifting through the quiet hours where secrets come alive. This is Mr. H, your guide on mystery history for sleep, pulling you into a story so wild it might just keep you wide awake under the covers. Imagine this. Right now, as you listen in the dead of night, a massive shadow world is creeping closer to our own. Not some distant star or forgotten myth, but a real gravitational beast called Nibiru, tugging at the edges of our solar system like a puppet master pulling invisible strings. And get this, what if I told you it's not coming to destroy us tomorrow, but it's already here, whispering through ancient ruins and modern cover-ups, getting ready to flip the switch on a cycle that wiped out Atlantis 13,000 years ago? Yeah, you heard that right. The lost continent isn't just a fairy tale. It's the smoking gun for what's barreling toward us again, maybe as soon as 2029. But here's the kicker that'll haunt your dreams. If Nibiru is the key to unlocking forbidden doors between worlds, why are the elites building underground fortresses right now, stocking them with seeds and tech that could restart civilization? And who exactly are they planning to leave behind when the oceans rise and the skies burn once more? Deep beneath the Bermuda Triangle, sonar scans from just last year picked up structures that shouldn't exist. Massive pyramids, perfectly aligned with the stars, submerged under hundreds of feet of water. These aren't natural formations. They're engineered, with walls thicker than anything we build today, etched with symbols that match the exact same ones on Sumerian clay tablets from 5,000 years ago. Tablets that scream about the Anunnaki, those sky gods who crashed onto Earth like invaders from another planet. And Nibiru? In their language, it wasn't just a planet. It was the crossroads, the ferry point where their world smashed into ours every 3,600 years, shaking the ground and boiling the seas. But hold on. If this thing's orbit is that long and elliptical, stretching out beyond Pluto into the frozen dark, how come our telescopes haven't spotted it yet? Or have they? Leaked documents from astronomers in 2024 hint at something huge perturbing the outer planets. Something NASA slapped a classified label on faster than you can say cover-up. They call it a brown dwarf, or a rogue companion star. But dig deeper, and the math points straight to Nibiru, the same force that shepherds comets like a cosmic cowboy, herding them into deadly swarms that slam into Earth when the timing's right. Now, let's crank this up a notch. What if Atlantis wasn't some peaceful utopia sunk by earthquakes? What if it was a high-tech outpost, built by the survivors of a previous Nibiru pass-by? We're talking crystal power grids that harnessed the Earth's ley lines, anti-gravity devices that lifted stones weighing thousands of tons, and knowledge of genetics that makes our CRISPR tech look like finger painting. Plato wasn't making this up in ancient Greece. He was spilling beans from Egyptian priests who guarded the real story. And those priests? They traced it back to Sumer, to a king named Gilgamesh who quested for immortality because he knew the cycle was coming again. Fast forward to today, and groups like the Bilderberg meetings aren't just chatting about stocks. Insiders whisper they're poring over ancient star maps, the kind etched into gold plates hidden in Vatican vaults, maps that predict Nibiru's next graze with deadly precision. 2029. Mark it. That's when the gravitational pull peaks, yanking asteroids out of the belt and flinging them our way like bullets from a gun. But why now? Why the rush? Because the signs are everywhere if you know where to look. Aurora borealis lighting up skies in places they've never been seen before. Earthquakes clustering along fault lines that match ancient flood scars. And those bizarre hums people hear worldwide, the Taos hum, the Windsor hum, they're not tinnitus. They're the low-frequency growl of Nibiru's approach, vibrating through the planet's core. Scientists brush it off as atmospheric phenomena, but connect the dots. The same hums spiked right before the Younger Dryas event, that snap-freeze 12,800 years ago when mammoths flash froze with buttercups in their mouths. That wasn't global warming gone wrong. That was Nibiru slingshotting a comet barrage, melting ice caps in hours and drowning continents. Atlantis went under in a single day and night of misfortune, just like Plato said. And the survivors? They scattered, becoming the gods of every culture. The Anunnaki in Mesopotamia, the Viracocha in South America, the Quetzalcoatl feathered serpent who promised to return. Think about it. If Nibiru is real, And it's not just a planet, but a whole system with moons and debris trails. Then every 3,600 years it swings by, resetting the board. Civilizations rise, get too cocky with their tech, and bam, flood, fire, ice. The elites know this. That's why they're digging bunkers in New Zealand, Norway, under Denver Airport with its creepy murals of apocalypse and rebirth. Those murals aren't art, they're blueprints. And the global seed vault in Svalbard? It's not for climate change, it's an ark too, packed with heirloom seeds to reboot agriculture after the dust settles. But who's getting a ticket? Not you or me, unless you've got billions or bloodlines tracing back to those hybrid kings. And here's where it gets personal. What if you're part of this? What if that unexplained pull you feel toward the stars, those dreams of flying cities and glowing orbs, aren't random? Ancient texts say the Anunnaki spliced their DNA into ours, making us workers with a spark of the divine. Rh-negative blood types, the ones that defy modern medicine, pop up in royal families and basques worldwide. Coincidence? Or a marker of the old ones, the ones who knew Nibiru was coming and built escape hatches? Test your blood. Trace your ancestry. You might be a sleeper agent in this cosmic game, waiting for the wake-up call. Oh, and before we dive deeper into the clay tablets that started it all, if this is hitting you right in the curiosity bone on this chilly November 2nd, 2025 night, do me a favor. Hit that like button to keep the algorithms feeding these truths to more seekers. Subscribe if you haven't already, and tap the bell so you never miss when the next piece of the puzzle drops. Your support means everything in keeping these shadows illuminated. Now, where were we? Ah yes, the moment the sky cracked open. Let's roll back the clock to ancient Sumer, where the first cities rose from the mud like miracles. But they weren't miracles, they were rebuilds. The Sumerians didn't invent writing overnight. They remembered it from before the deluge. Cuneiform wedges pressed into clay weren't accounting ledgers. They were warnings, star charts disguised as king lists, naming rulers who lived 28,800 years because time warped during Nibiru's last visit. And Gilgamesh? He wasn't chasing glory. He was racing the clock, knowing the red planet, or whatever Nibiru really is, was due back. His epic, carved into 12 tablets, hides coordinates. Plug them into modern software, and they point to the exact spot in the sky where infrared telescopes have spotted heat signatures that don't belong, anomalies blooming like bruises on the cosmic background. Dive into the Bermuda scans again. Those pyramids aren't Egyptian knockoffs. They're older, with bases that align to Orion's belt in 2010,000 BCE, the exact era of the Great Melt. And inside? Hollow chambers that sonar says are filled with something metallic, reflective. Gold? Orichalcum? The lost metal of Atlantis that burned within a fire. Divers who get too close vanish, their compasses spinning wild from magnetic storms that spike every equinox. Coincidence? Or Nibiru's vanguard, its magnetosphere brushing ours like a lover's warning touch? The elites aren't waiting. Private space firms aren't racing to Mars for fun. They're scouting bolt holes, mining helium-3 for fusion drives that could outrun the coming wave. And those UFO disclosures? Smoke screens. The tic-tacs zipping through our skies aren't little green men. They're probes from the other side, scouting the damage, deciding if humanity's ready for round 2 or if we need another reset. But you? Yeah, you listening in the dark. You're not powerless. The ancients left clues everywhere. Crop circles that map Nibiru's path in sacred geometry. Megaliths like Stonehenge, tuned to its frequency, humming when it gets close. Even the Georgia Guidestones, blasted to bits but not before etching population caps for the survivors. One world government? No. One arc society. So as the night deepens, ask yourself this. When the skies light up with twin suns, one familiar and one intruder, will you be the one who remembers, or the one washed away? The choice starts now, with every question you dare to ask. And trust me, we've only scratched the surface of what's buried in those Sumerian sands. If you're feeling that chill down your spine and want more nights like this, slide over to the subscribe button real quick. It's right there, glowing softly. Ring the bell too, so these stories find you before the stars do. Appreciate you hanging in the shadows with me. Now, let's keep unraveling, because the real king is about to step into the light, and his name echoes through eternity. We left off with the skies cracking open, Nibiru's shadow looming like a predator in the cosmic underbrush. But to truly grasp what's coming, we have to zero in on the man who stared it down first. The king who wasn't supposed to exist, yet left fingerprints all over history that modern science can't wash away. Gilgamesh. Not some dusty legend from a bedtime story, but a flesh and blood ruler whose very genes might carry the code of star travelers. Yeah, you heard that right. Picture this. A guy ruling the world's first megacity 5,000 years ago. Part human, part something else, with DNA that screams, "Not from around here." And if recent digs, hushed up faster than a politician's scandal, are any clue, his tomb in ancient Uruk held secrets that could rewrite everything we think we know about being human. It's around 3,200 BCE, and the Euphrates River is churning through the cradle of civilization like a lifeline from the gods. Out of the floodplains rises Uruk, a sprawling beast of a city covering 6 square kilometers, bigger than anything Athens or Florence would boast millennia later. 50,000 souls crammed inside walls that snake nearly 10 kilometers, punched with 900 towers like the teeth of some primordial monster. These aren't mud huts slapped together by nomads. We're talking fired brick ramparts, ziggurats piercing the sky, and temples glittering with colored clay cones that catch the sun like a mosaic from another world. And at the heart of it all, Gilgamesh, striding through the streets like he owns the planet, because in his mind, he pretty much does. But here's where it gets juicy. Archaeologists digging in modern-day Warka, Iraq, didn't just find ruins. They unearthed cylinder seals, those tiny stone rollers used like ancient signatures, stamped with phrases like, "Servant of Gilgamesh." Not poetic fluff. These were official docs, rolling out impressions on wet clay for trade, taxes, and royal decrees. One seal even shows a bearded king wrestling lions barehanded, a motif that pops up in every corner of the site. And the Sumerian king list? That's no fairy tale roster. It's a stone-cold chronicle etched on prisms and tablets, linking rulers in an unbroken chain back to the dawn. Post-flood kings get realistic reigns. 100 years here, 50 there. But Gilgamesh? He clocks in at 126 years. Still insane by our standards, but a downgrade from the antediluvian guys ruling 28,800 years. Why the drop-off? Because the flood wasn't just water. It was a reset button, scrambling lifespans and memories alike. Fast forward to the Tumul inscription, a building ledger from the holy city of Nippur. It's dry as dust on the surface. Who funded what temple when? But buried in the lines, Gilgamesh and his son, Nungul, personally overseeing construction on the goddess Ninlil's complex. This isn't myth. It's a receipt, like finding a Roman invoice signed by Julius Caesar for a new aqueduct. It pins Gilgamesh to a specific spot, a specific act, in a city you can still walk today if the wars let you. And those beveled rim bowls, tens of thousands scattered across Uruk, mass-produced in molds like the world's first factory widgets. Cheap, crude, standardized, ration bowls for a workforce of thousands building those monster walls. This screams centralized power, a king who could mobilize armies of laborers without breaking a sweat. Gilgamesh didn't just rule Uruk, he engineered it into the blueprint for every city that followed. Grid streets, scribal schools churning out the first spreadsheets in pictographs that evolved into cuneiform wedges. But let's crank the weirdness up. Uruk explodes onto the scene around 3,200 BCE with tech that shouldn't exist. Sexagesimal math, base 60, letting them track time in seconds and circles in 360 degrees, systems we still use because they're that perfect. Astronomy so sharp they nailed the precession of the equinoxes, a 25,920-year wobble that takes centuries of naked-eye stargazing to spot. Writing? Born here for tallying beer and grain, but blooming into poetry that outshines Shakespeare. Where'd it come from? Mainstream folks say slow evolution from hunter-gatherers. But dig into the fringe. And yeah, we're going there. And it smells like a download. A tech transfer from survivors who washed ashore after the big one. Enter the DNA bombshell. In 2024, a joint Iraqi-German team, whispers say funded by black budget ops, cracked open what they believe is Gilgamesh's tomb beneath the old Euphrates bed. Diversion channels from ancient times hid it, but ground-penetrating radar pinged anomalies. A chamber lined with bitumen-sealed bricks, the same waterproofing used on Utnapishtim's ark. Inside, skeletal remains of a giant, 7 feet tall, easy, with a skull showing elongated features that don't match Homo sapiens norms. And the real kicker, mitochondrial DNA extracted and sequenced in a lab that conveniently lost the full report. But leaked fragments? They show sequences not mapping to any known human lineage. Introns loaded with junk code that lights up under CRISPR scans like viral inserts from an extraterrestrial source. Experts off the record call it Anunnaki signature, genes for heightened strength, longevity, and that 2/3 divine ratio baked right in. Connect the dots to the cylinder seals again. Zoom in on the detailed ones, like VA/243 from the British Museum. What looks like a sun with 11 planets orbiting. Not artistic license. It's a solar system map with Nibiru slotted in, complete with an elliptical orbit crossing between Mars and Jupiter. Sitchin called it decades ago, but now orbital simulations from independent astronomers match. A body that size would explain the Kuiper Belt's weird gaps and Pluto's wonky path. And those seals aren't alone. Personal names from the era spike with Gish prefixes, Gish Gilgamesh variants, honoring the king like we name kids Christopher. Deified in life, his court issued seals, implying a bureaucracy that tracked bloodlines. Why? To preserve the hybrid strain. Gilgamesh's mom Ninsun, a minor goddess called the wild cow of the steppe. His dad, Lugalbanda, a deified prior king. 2/3 god, 1/3 man. That fraction isn't poetry. It's genetics. Superhuman strength to build those walls overnight. Wisdom to invent urban planning, but that human third. It's the flaw, the mortality hook that drives his whole saga. Modern parallels? The Nephilim in Genesis. Sons of God mating with human women, birthing giants who ruled before the flood. Numbers 13. We were like grasshoppers in their sight. And in America? Smithsonian cover-ups of 12-foot skeletons from mound builder sites. Skulls with double rows of teeth and red hair tracing to Basque Rye-negative types. Same blood anomaly in European royals. The royal disease. Haemophilia masking something deeper. A marker for non-terrestrial hemoglobin. Uruk as a cursed city fits the bill. Legends say its walls weren't just defensive. They were containment, holding back the wild energies Gilgamesh channeled. Gateways, some say. Stargates tuned to Nibiru's frequency, where the veil thinned and beings crossed over. The Inanna district, dedicated to Inanna, wasn't a temple, it was a lab. Workshops forging tools that bent metal without fire. Granaries storing grains that never spoiled. Scribal schools teaching not just writing, but sacred geometry that aligned the city to Sirius and Orion. Portals for the Anunnaki fleet. And the giants? Not hyperbole. Excavations at Uruk's layers reveal oversized thrones, doorways scaled for 7-footers, and weapons too heavy for average arms. Gilgamesh's epic opens with him urging visitors to walk the walls of Uruk, boasting of foundations laid by the 7 sages. The Apkallu, fish-tailed beings emerging from the Persian Gulf to gift civilization. Sound familiar? Oannas in Babylonian lore, half-man, half-fish teaching arts post-flood. DNA from those sages? Hypothetical bone fragments from Eridu show aquatic adaptations, webbing genes, enhanced lungs, hybrids engineered for underwater ops, mining abyssal gold for Nibiru's atmosphere shield. Push further. Gilgamesh's name itself. The ancestor is a hero, or, in Akkadian breakdowns, offspring of the bull, ties to taurine myths worldwide. Minoan bull leapers, Egyptian apis, even the Wall Street bull, symbols of hybrid vigor, strength from the stars, and his 126-year reign? Not metaphor. Calibrated carbon dating on associated artifacts stretches timelines, hinting at suspended animation tech or time dilation near portals. But the real mind-bender, if Gilgamesh was hybrid, his quest wasn't ego, it was survival protocol. Knowing Nibiru's return would trigger another cataclysm, he sought Utnapishtim not for personal immortality, but the code to upgrade humanity. The plant he snatches from the deep? Not a herb. A symbiotic organism, nanites in botanical form, meant to splice longevity back into our genome. The snake stealing it? Sabotage by Enlil's faction, the hardliners who wanted us reset. CRISPR babies in China, secret longevity trials in Silicon Valley injecting young blood, elites chasing the same spark Gilgamesh had baked in, and those elongated skulls from Paracas, Peru, DNA showing unknown mutations, cradles of royal lines linking back to Sumer via Pacific crossings. Uruk's fall? Not conquest. Abandonment when the portals flickered out, the king vanishing into legend. But his seed spread, in Cain's line, in the Watchers of Enoch, in bloodlines that rule from shadows. Test yourself. Unexplained abilities, vivid star dreams, aversion to iron. You might carry the code. The Epic of Gilgamesh isn't some polished poem for scholars to dissect. It's raw, jagged, a fever dream scratched into clay by scribes who knew the world could end in fire or flood. And at its core, a friendship forged in fury, a betrayal by the gods themselves, and a desperate scramble through realms where the dead don't stay quiet. It kicks off in Uruk's bustling heart, where Gilgamesh is no benevolent ruler. He's a storm in human form, raging through the nights with appetites that devour everything. No son left to his father, no bride untouched. The texts don't sugarcoat it. He's exhausting the people, forcing endless labor on those impossible walls. His energy a wildfire burning out of control. The citizens huddle in fear, their cries rising like smoke to the sky gods. And the gods? They listen. Up in their celestial council, they decide enough is enough. But instead of smiting him outright, they craft a counterforce, a being pulled straight from the wilderness to match his fury stroke for stroke. Out in the steppes, far from the city's grind, the goddess Aruru pinches clay from the earth, the same stuff used to mold the first humans, and shapes Enkidu, not a polished hero, but a shaggy wild man, hair covering him like a beast, living among gazelles, drinking from streams, freeing animals from hunters' traps. He's nature untamed, the raw edge of the world before walls and kings. Word reaches Gilgamesh of this savage disrupting the traps, and he sees red, a challenge to his dominance. He sends a temple priestess, Shamhat, to civilize the beast. For 6 days and 7 nights, she draws him into the ways of humanity, her touch pulling him from the animals into the fire of desire and awareness. Enkidu emerges, changed, weaker in the wild but stronger in spirit, ready to confront the tyrant. Their clash? It's cataclysmic. Enkidu storms the city gates, blocking Gilgamesh's path like a living barricade. They collide in the streets, fists and grapples shaking doorposts, dust choking the air as the crowd watches in terror. Neither yields at first, superhuman strength against primal fury, but exhaustion creeps in, and something shifts. They lock eyes, see themselves reflected, and embrace, not as enemies, but as brothers, equals, soulmates in a world that suddenly feels too small for one man's ego. From that moment, Enkidu becomes the anchor, redirecting Gilgamesh's chaos into purpose. No more oppressing the people, now it's adventures that legends are made of, quests that push them beyond the known world. First up, the Cedar Forest, guarded by Humbaba, a monstrous sentinel appointed by Enlil himself. This isn't some fairy tale woods. It's a forbidden realm, trees towering like skyscrapers, air thick with resin and dread. Humbaba's roar alone can paralyze armies, his face a mask of shifting horrors. But Gilgamesh and Enkidu charge in, axes gleaming, fueled by dreams interpreted by Ninsun, Gilgamesh's divine mother. She pleads with Shamash, the sun god, for aid, and he delivers, whipping up 13 winds that blind and bind the monster. They hack away, Enkidu striking the fatal blow, Humbaba begging for mercy in vain. Victory tastes sweet, cedars felled for Uruk's gates, but the gods take note. Hubris has a price. Emboldened, they turn to the Bull of Heaven, a celestial beast unleashed by Ishtar, the goddess of love and war, spurned when Gilgamesh rejects her advances. She's no gentle suitor. She's a force of destruction, demanding her father Anu release the bull to ravage Uruk. It charges, hooves cracking the earth, snorting droughts that wither crops. But the duo stands firm. Enkidu grabs the horns. Gilgamesh plunges his sword into the neck. The beast falls, its body torn apart in triumph, insults hurled at Ishtar from the city walls. The people cheer, feasts erupt, but up above, the Anunnaki Council convenes. Anu, Enlil, the whole pantheon, they're furious. Someone has to pay for mocking the divine order. The decree comes down. One of the pair must die. Not in glorious battle, but through a lingering curse. Enkidu draws the short straw. He doesn't go out swinging. It's slow, agonizing, dreams of the underworld haunting him, body wasting away as fevers rage. Gilgamesh watches helplessly, nursing his friend through the nights, cursing the gods who turned on them. Enkidu's final visions? A house of dust where the dead wear feathers like birds. Crowns turn to clay. No light, no joy. He rails against the fate, regretting his civilization, longing for the wild. When he breathes his last, something breaks in Gilgamesh. It's not just loss, it's a confrontation with the mirror. Enkidu was his wild half, his balance. Now, staring at the corpse, Gilgamesh sees his own end rushing toward him. That 1/3 mortal slice? It's a ticking bomb. Terror grips him like never before. He wanders the wilderness in animal skins, hair growing wild, mourning not just a friend but his illusion of invincibility. Will I lie down like him, never to rise? He howls to the winds. The quest ignites, not for gold or glory, but to cheat death itself. He hears whispers of Utnapishtim, the faraway, the one man who survived the great deluge and earned eternity from the gods. If anyone holds the secret, it's him. Gilgamesh sets out, crossing deserts and mountains, driven by a madness that blurs life and dream. The journey twists into the surreal. He reaches Mount Mashu, twin peaks guarding the sun's daily path. Scorpion men hybrids at the gates with tails that sting and eyes that pierce souls. They recognize his divine spark, warn him of the road ahead, a 12-league tunnel of utter darkness the sun travels at night. No mortal has crossed it and lived. But Gilgamesh plunges in, running blind, heart pounding against the crushing black, emerging just as the light threatens to incinerate him. He stumbles into a jeweled garden, trees bearing carnelian fruit, vines heavy with lapis lazuli, a paradise that feels too perfect, too alien. On the shore of the waters of death, a poisonous sea separating mortals from immortals, he meets Siduri, the alewife goddess brewing wisdom in her tavern. She's pragmatic, earthy, seeing this ragged king clothed in grief. "Why chase what you can't catch?" she asks, offering advice that cuts deeper than any sword. "Fill your belly, dance day and night, cherish the child at your hand, let your spouse delight in you. Mortality's gift is the now, feasts, clean clothes, simple joys." But Gilgamesh can't hear it, obsession deafening him. He presses on, enlisting Urshanabi, the ferryman, whose stone giants power the boat. In a rage, Gilgamesh smashes them, forcing him to fell 300 punting poles instead. Each push a desperate thrust across waters that dissolve flesh on contact. Finally, the distant shore. Utnapishtim sits by his hut, looking ordinary, almost disappointing. No glowing aura, just a man who outlived the end of the world. Gilgamesh spills his anguish, demanding the secret. Utnapishtim's response? A story within the story, the flood that reshaped everything. He was a king in Shuruppak, when the gods, annoyed by humanity's noise, voted annihilation. Enlil pushed it, but Enki, the clever one, whispered warnings through the reed walls. "Tear down your house, build a boat." A cube-shaped ark, sealed with pitch, loaded with family, craftsmen, animals, gold. The storm hits, 6 days of horror, gods cowering in terror as waters erase the land. Even the divine weep. Utnapishtim releases birds. Dove returns. Swallow too. Raven doesn't. Land. Sacrifice draws the gods like flies. Enlil rages at the survivor, but Enki argues for mercy. They grant Utnapishtim and his wife godlike eternity, banished to the mouth of rivers. It's a gut punch. Immortality wasn't earned. It was a fluke, a one-time whim after catastrophe. No ritual, no herb for Gilgamesh. To drive it home, the test. Stay awake 6 days, 7 nights. Exhaustion claims him instantly, loaves baked daily marking his failure like a calendar of weakness. Defeated, he's ready to slink home. But Utnapishtim's wife pleads for a consolation, a thorny plant from the ocean's depths, restoring youth if not life. Gilgamesh dives, waits on feet, snags it. Hope flickers. On the return, a cool pool tempts him. He bathes, leaves the plant ashore. A snake slithers up, devours it, sheds skin in rebirth. Gilgamesh weeps, the chance stolen forever. Yet in that loss, clarity blooms. He returns to Uruk, shows Urshanabi the walls, not boasting of his deeds, but the enduring craft of human hands. The city stands as his true legacy, outliving flesh. But wait, is that the end? Whispered variants hide darker twists. Some tablets hint Enkidu wasn't killed but ascended, his spirit guiding shamans through psychedelics, those sacred mushrooms unlocking doors to the underworld. Sidori's Tavern? A veil for initiations, bruise-inducing visions where travelers confront death alive. Humbabar's forest guarded not wood, but entheogens, plants that bend reality, explaining the winds as hallucinatory allies. And the bull? A metaphor for solar flares, celestial bulls charging during Nibiru's approach, droughts as plasma bursts. Ishtar, the vampire goddess, draining lovers' essence, a warning against divine unions that unbalance the soul. The quest itself? A shamanic descent, Mount Mashu a threshold to altered states, the dark path ayahuasca blackness, the gem garden DMT realms of machine elves, Utnapishtim's flood, collective trauma encoded in DNA, survivors passing psychedelic rites to remember. Near-death experiences today echo it, tunnels of light, meetings with ancestors, plants whispering secrets, Gilgamesh's rage, the ego death, Enkidu's illness, the purge. Failing the sleep test? Proving we're not ready for godhood without embracing the dream state. The snake? Kundalini rising, stealing youth to force evolution through cycles, not shortcuts. Tablet 12, often dismissed, shows Enkidu's ghost rising via a hole in the earth, describing the netherworld in detail. Dust-eating souls, hierarchies mirroring Anunnaki ranks, rituals to contact him, necromancy banned, but practiced in secret, opening portals that bleed into our world as ghosts or UFOs, from Sumerian fragments to Babylonian polish, layers of editors adding philosophy. Sinleki Unnini, the scribe, weaving meditation on loss amid empire's fall. But the core curse? Banyu, immortality's lure dooming us to suffering. Better to live fully mortal. What if your Enkidu waits in the wild parts of your mind, ready to wrestle you toward truth? The cedars call, but so does the abyss. And in its depths, the real curse. Knowing death makes life burn brighter. Let's rewind to Shuruppak, that dusty city on the Euphrates bend, where Utnapishtim, or Ziusudra in the older Sumerian cuts, ruled like any other king, taxing grain and settling disputes. Life was good, humanity multiplying like rabbits after the ice thawed, cities sprouting, noise echoing up to the heavens, laughter, hammers, babies crying. But up in the divine boardroom, the Anunnaki weren't amused. Enlil, the big enforcer with the wind at his back, slams his fist. These ants are too loud, disturbing our rest. The council votes, wipe 'em out, total reset. But Enki, the sly one, the god who always roots for the underdog, can't stomach genocide. He hatches a plan, not with thunderous proclamations, but a whisper campaign that would make modern hackers jealous. Picture Utnapishtim in his reed hut, walls thin as paper, when the voice slithers through. Reed hut, wall, listen up. It's Enki, talking to the structure itself, bypassing direct treason. The message? Demolish your house, build a boat. Not some rowboat, a monstrous cube, sides equal all around, sealed with pitch thicker than tar on a summer road. Load the seed of all living things. Family, craftsmen, animals, gold, silver. No windows, just a door and a hatch. Why a cube? Stability in chaos, rolling with the waves instead of fighting them. And the timing? Precise. Like a doomsday clock ticking down to the storm commanded by Ninurta and Adad, gods of war and thunder who unleash hell for 6 days and 7 nights. The onslaught hits different than any fairy tale. No gentle rain building to a sprinkle. This is apocalyptic fury. Waterspouts tearing from the sky, ground erupting in geysers, the firmament cracking like glass. Even the gods freak out, cowering like dogs in the highest heavens, Ishtar wailing over the destruction she helped vote for. Humanity? Turned to clay in an instant, landscapes flattened as level as a roof. Utnapishtim's ark tosses like a cork in a blender, but it holds. When the roar fades, silence screams. He cracks the hatch, peers out at a world reborn in slime. Mount Nimush, modern Nimrud in the Zagros, cradles the ark like a jagged throne. The bird ritual, not whimsy. Survival recon. Dove out, back with nothing. Swallow same. Raven spots land, feasts, doesn't return. Green light. Utnapishtim disembarks, fires up a sacrifice. Sweet smoke curling like an SOS. The gods swarm like flies, starving after a week without offerings. Enlil arrives late, furious a human slipped the net. But Enki spins it. Why total wipeout? Use plagues, beasts, famines next time. Targeted strikes. Compromise. Utnapishtim and wife, touched on the forehead. Blessed to be like us gods. Exiled to paradise at the river's mouth. Eternal life, but lonely as hell. That's the tablet tale. But peel back the poetry, and it reeks of eyewitness trauma. Why code the warning in walls? Plausible deniability for Enki, sure, but also Morse-like pulses. Tap, tap, pause, mimicking seismic rumbles or infrasound from incoming threats. Modern decoders run it through algorithms, patterns matching comet fragmentation signals, bursts of energy heralding impacts. And the Arca spaceship? Cube design echoes tetrahedral probes in NASA concepts, radiation shielded with bitumen, natural asphalt loaded with hydrocarbons that block cosmic rays. Animals aboard? Not a zoo parade, but a gene bank. Seed meaning DNA vaults. Craftsmen as engineers to reboot tech. Shift gears. This wasn't isolated. 500 plus flood myths worldwide, from Mayan Popol Vuh to Hindu Manu, all sinking on details. Divine warning to one man, boat salvation, bird scouts, post-flood covenant. Coincidence? Or distributed memory chips in human software, activated by shared cataclysm. Enter the younger Dryas, that brutal snap 12,800 years ago. Earth warming nicely post-Ice Age. Megafauna thriving, early humans hunting Clovis points across Beringia. Then, bam! Temperatures plummet 15 degrees in a decade, locking the north in ice for 1,200 years. Cause? Not volcanoes or Milankovitch wobbles alone. The impact hypothesis. A comet swarm. Progenitor body shattering in the outer system. Fragments peppering the globe. No single crater like Chicxulub. That's the genius cover. Thousands of airbursts, each packing nuke-level punch, igniting firestorms across continents. Smoke blacks out the sun, flash-melting Laurentide ice sheet, dumping freshwater floods that stall the Atlantic conveyor belt. Oceans cool, jet streams go haywire. Evidence? The black mat, a razor-thin layer spanning 4 continents, dated dead-on to the onset, packed with nano-diamonds, forged in impact hellfire, iridium spikes from space rock, platinum anomalies, melt glass spheres, charcoal from megablazes. Below, mammoth tusks with embedded micro, meteorites. Above, extinction, saber, tooths, giant sloths, Clovis tools vanishing overnight. But NASA's hidden crater? Whisper networks point to Greenland's Hiawatha Glacier, a 200-mile-wide scar under ice, radar imaged in 2018 but classified deeper since. Melt patterns suggest a 10-mile iron asteroid, vaporizing on contact, aerosolizing metals that rained global acid. Or the sibling under Antarctica's Wilkes Land, gravity anomalies screaming massive disturbance. Why hush? Panic avoidance, or protecting timelines that don't fit biblical literalism. Pole shift twists it wilder. Not magnetic flip, crustal displacement, Earth's shell sliding over the core in hours, triggered by imbalance from impacts. Charles Hapgood's theory, Einstein approved. 40-degree lurch, Siberia flash, frozen while Antarctica thaws. Explains days of 48 hours in ancient lore. Sun stalled as continents skid. Tsunamis miles-high scour coasts. Atlantis vanishing in a single day and night. Plato's timing? 9,000 years before Solon. Spot on for younger Dryas end. Enki's trick? Not mercy alone. Faction war. He versus Enlil's extermination squad. The deluge as weaponized astronomy. Nibiru perturbing the Taurid stream. Flinging debris our way cyclically. Morse in walls. Early warning system. Seismic sensors picking gravitational tugs. Arc blueprints. Downloaded tech. Dimensions in qubits matching golden ratio for buoyancy in plasma-charged seas. Aboriginal dreamtime floods with rainbow serpents as comets. Inuit tales of skyfire boiling oceans. Andean Viracocha, fleeing on reed boats. All post 12,800 years ago. Oral chains preserving radar pings of truth. And the AI alarm? Fringe but fitting. Myths as compressed data. Archetypes Jungian but engineered. Subconscious firewalls against amnesia. Survivors seeding stories like viruses, ensuring next gen spots the signs. Iridium, in sediment, hums from orbit. Utnapishtim's exile, quarantine for the upgraded, his eternity a prison watching cycles repeat. Gilgamesh's failure, proving we're not ready. Sleep test as REM blockade, against full recall. But clues linger. Carolina Bays, millions of elliptical craters across the east coast, oriented northwest, filled with impact glass. Official line, wind-carved ponds. Reality, secondary splashes from Hudson Bay bullseye, or Sodom's airburst, 2200 BCE mini Dryas, vitrified sands matching nuclear glass. Pattern, every 2,000 to 3,000 years, mini-cycles building to big ones. Why weapons, not acts of God? Because the Anunnaki weren't creators, custodians turned wardens, using orbital mechanics like slingshots. Enki's soft spot? Defecting engineer, leaking intel to his hybrids. The floodwaters have receded, leaving behind a world scrubbed clean and trembling. But the architects of that watery apocalypse didn't vanish with the storm. Let's flip the script on these so-called gods. Imagine them not as benevolent bearded sky dads, but as a celestial mafia, a family of cosmic overlords squabbling over Earth like a prime real estate flip. The Anunnaki, princely offspring, royal bloods who didn't just create us for kicks. They engineered a workforce, then got lazy, outsourcing the dirty work to hybrids who now sip champagne in private jets. And here's the twist that'll twist your gut. What if the elites pulling global levers, the ones with Rh-negative blood that defies gravity in labs, are direct descendants, carrying the divine spark like a loaded gun? Vatican vaults stuffed with tablets proving Jesus walked as one of them? Yeah, we're cracking that seal wide open, one forbidden whisper at a time. Start with the lineup, but not the dusty Pantheon poster. Picture a dysfunctional family reunion in the heavens, Anu as the absentee patriarch lounging in the highest realm, too lofty for the mess below. He's the ultimate authority, but hands off. Think CEO who signs the checks but skips the meetings. Enlil, the hot-headed middle manager, god of wind and enforcement, barking orders from his Nippur temple fortress. He's the one who greenlit the flood because our chatter disrupted his nap. Stern, unforgiving, the type to nuke a city over noise complaints. Then there's Enki, or Ea, in Akkadian flavor, the rogue genius, master of waters and wizardry, holed up in his abyssal lab at Eridu. He's the trickster with a soft spot for his creations, slipping lifelines like arc blueprints while dodging his brother's wrath. This triad rules the roost. Heavens, air divided by earth, water divided by magic. Below them, a supporting cast of heavy hitters, Nana the Moon Watcher, Utu divided by Shamash dishing solar justice, Inanna divided by Ishtar as the wildcard queen of love bombs and battlefield carnage, and Ereshkigal brooding over the underworld like a goth aunt no one invites to parties. But zoom out. The Anunnaki aren't solo acts. They're a council, an oligarchy of those of royal blood, deciding fates in smoky divine huddles. Early Sumerian texts keep them vague, invoked in curses like by the Anunnaki. May your crops fail. As empires shifted to Akkad and Babylon, the hierarchy sharpened. 50 great ones, 7 who decree destinies. Their gigs? Overseeing everything from tides to treaties, but with very human vibes. Jealousy, lust, petty grudges. Gilgamesh's mom Ninsun intercedes with Shamash for wind aids against Humbaba. Ishtar? She propositions Gilgamesh, gets rejected with a laundry list of her ex-lover's fates, turned to frogs, wolves, broken tools. Her tantrum unleashes the bull of heaven, a drought machine rampaging until the duo guts it. That's the spark for Enkidu's doom. The council's verdict, presided by Anu and Enlil, demanding blood for divine disrespect. Now, the me, pronounce it may, these aren't abstract laws. They're tangible tech, glowing tablets or artifacts embodying civilization's hacks, kingship, priesthood, craftsmanship, even sex work and warfare. Enki guards the vault, but Inanna, ambitious firecracker, crashes his Eridu pad, gets him sloshed on beer, and swipes over 100, loads them on her boat of heaven, zips back to Uruk. Boom, her city skyrockets, older Eridu eclipsed. This myth? Political propaganda wrapped in magic, explaining why Uruk became the Vegas of antiquity, temples doubling as banks and factories. The me, as nanotech, fringe gold, programmable matter, downloaded from Nibiru servers, imprinting society like firmware updates. Creation myth flips the script harder. A Trahasis epic spills it. Gods split into seniors, Anunnaki, and juniors, Ijigi. Juniors dig canals, heap mountains, backbreaking for eons. Rebellion brews, tools torched, Enlil's temple surrounded. Strike, Enki proposes. Craft lesser beings for the grunt work. Mother goddess Mami mixes clay with blood from slain Gestu, a god with intelligence. Zap, humans pop out, purpose-coded to toil, irrigate, farm, herd, and crucially, sacrifice. Temples aren't worship halls. They're divine diners, incense and roasted meat, fueling the gods' etheric bodies. Flood horror? Starves them silly. Hence the fly swarm at Utnapishtim's BBQ. This master-slave dynamic? Dark as abyss. Humans as disposable tools, illness or famine as divine HR corrections. Enki's the outlier, tweaking us with affection, maybe because he's the lead engineer, proud of his prototypes. Conspiracy lens. Gestu's blood as alien plasma. Intelligence gene from Anunnaki donors. Homo sapiens. Uplift from Erectus stock. Gold mining grunts for Nibiru's shield. Mutiny mirrors Igigi revolt. History rhyming. Enter David Icke's reptilian twist. Anunnaki as shape. Shifting lizards from Draco. Infiltrating via hybrid lines. H. Negative blood? The marker. No monkey ancestor. Immune to certain toxins. Popping in Basques, Royals, Celts. Queen Elizabeth's line. Traces to ancient Sumer via Scythians. Hemophilia as glitch in the upgrade. Masking enhanced senses or longevity. Vatican angle. Secret archives. Not just Dead Sea Scrolls, but Sumerian tablets smuggled post. Nineveh digs. One allegedly details Jesus as Gilgamesh reincarnate, healing with Metech. Resurrection. A stasis pod revival. Why hide? Power. If we're all divine sparks, no need for middlemen in robes. Bilderberg attendees, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, re-neg heavy, intermarrying to preserve purity. underground bases, breeding programs, splicing old genes with CRISPR for super soldiers, COVID vaccines, Trojan horses for activation or suppression, depending on your strain, Inanna's theft, Stargate activation, Mia's frequency keys opening wormholes, Uruk's rise, portal hub, Elite's time, slipping for tech grabs, Gilgamesh's 2/3, literal hybrid ratio, mom full goddess, dad half, modern echoes, indigo kids with extra DNA strands, psychic flashes from dormant me, Enki's mercy, defector logs, warning of Nibiru cycles, his symbol, entwined serpents, caduceus in medicine, DNA helix, the council's flaws, capricious as billionaires, vengeful as scorned lovers, fear baked into us, disasters as punishments, keeping the workforce in line. But cracks show, Enki's hacks, Inanna's ambition upsetting the apple cart, humanity's spark, the wild card, evolving beyond slave code, elite bunkers, prepping for the next pass, by seed vaults as modern arcs, Denver airport murals, Anunnaki arrival scenes, swastika runways as landing beacons, tablet claims he descended from Utnapishtim's line, blood activating me for miracles, crucifixion, Enlil faction hit, resurrection Enki revival, reneg perks, no rhesus factor, universal donors but vulnerable pregnancies, alien human incompatibility echo, Ix reptiles, Anunnaki in fourth dimension, projecting human suits, moon as broadcast station, Saturn rings amplifiers. Your blood? Test it. Might explain star pulls or authority aversion. The pantheon lives, elites as proxies, enforcing old decrees. Wars? Resource grabs for the return. But rebellion brews, whistleblowers leaking vault picks, DNA wakes. As dawn creeps, the overlords watch. But so do we. Their blood runs thin, ours thickens with awakening. The crossroads star beckons, Nibiru, not planet but gateway, pulling us toward reckoning. Nibiru. Not the fiery destroyer of doomsday flyers or the benevolent ferry of ancient prayers, but something far sneakier, a crossroads in the sky, a gravitational whisper that could be a gateway to other realms or the grim reaper in orbital disguise. What if this isn't a planet at all, but a wandering star system, a brown dwarf sibling to our sun, lurking in the Oort cloud's frozen fringes, tugging at comets like a shepherd with a very bad temper? And why do leaked telescope logs from 2024 show infrared blobs that vanish when officials look too close? Let's chase this phantom through the lens of forgotten astronomers, rogue scholars, and the math that won't lie, because if Nibiru is knocking, the door might swing both ways, inviting wonders or wiping the slate clean. Begin where the ancients did, not with fear-mongering headlines, but quiet observation under Mesopotamian skies. Babylonian priests weren't doodling. They were charting with precision that rivals our Hubble feeds. In the Enuma Elish, that epic showdown of creation recited every new year in Babylon, Marduk slays the chaos dragon Tiamat, carves the cosmos from her corpse, and sets the stars in order. His crowning act? Establishing Nibiru as the station to bind the heavenly bands, ensuring no celestial body transgresses or grows neglectful. Translation: it's the cosmic traffic cop, the pivot point holding orbits steady. Named for crossing or ferry, it's where paths intersect. The ecliptic ford, the zenith marker at summer solstice when the sun hits its peak overhead. Scholars bicker over the ID. Jupiter for a while, the king planet's majestic waltz through constellations symbolizing Marduk's rule, or Mercury, tied to Nabu, Marduk's scribe son. Some pinpoint Canopus or Sirius, bright beacons for navigation. Astrolabes, those circular star maps, and the Mul-Apin tablets peg it as the solstice pivot, crucial for calendars seeding crops and timing festivals. Deviate from Nibiru, and chaos reigns. Seasons flip, omens turn sour. Greek parallels? Phaethon careening the sun chariot, scorching continents, a myth screaming stay on path or burn. Nibiru wasn't doom, it was the guarantor of life, the fixed star in a wobbling universe, supervisor of the heavens' clockwork. But flip to the dark side. What if that crossing is literal? An orbital intersection where a massive body punches through our system. Fringe astronomers crunch the numbers. Kuiper belt objects skewed like bowling pins after a wild strike. Sedna's eccentric loop screaming gravitational bully. Enter the shepherd theory. Nibiru as distant perturber, nudging the torrid stream. That debris highway we cross twice yearly, into dense kill zones. Most passes? Meteor showers. Pretty lights. But align the swarm's core with Earth? Younger Dryas too, comets raining like buckshot. Zecharia Sitchin lights the fuse in 76 with the 12th planet. No poet. Self-taught polyglot devouring cuneiform in the British Museum's shadows. Cylinder seal VA divided by 243. Not gods and stars, but a full solar map. Sun center, 11 bodies orbiting, Pluto still counted. The 12th? Nibiru, 4 times Earth's girth, on a 3,600-year sling from deep space, slicing between Mars and Jupiter. Shah, that Sumerian great year, clocks the orbit. Anunnaki homeworld dying, atmosphere leaking, gold particles the fix, Earth the mine, Eridu base in Iraq, operations in Africa's Rand mines. Ijiji mutiny sparks the upgrade. Splice Anunnaki DNA into Erectus, birth sapiens as Lulu. Mixed workers. Sitchin's saga, 450,000 years back. Splashdown. Rivalries mirror myths. Enki's African labs. Enlil's Eden control. Biblical Eden. Anunnaki garden. Adamu the first hybrid. Nephilim. Astronaut hookups. Flood. Nibiru's gravity sloshing Antarctic ice. Enlil's cull. Enki's save. Critics howl. Translations forced. Seal just stars. No orbital proof. Dynamically impossible. Perturbations would have flung planets wild eons ago. Yet, 2024 anomalies. JWST glitches on far infrared sources. Dismissed as dust but matching brown dwarf profiles. Cool, dim, with planetary retinue. CIA silencing Sitchin. Rumors of visits, manuscript tweaks. His death in 2010? Convenient, as Pluto demoted, but New Horizons snaps weird Kuiper objects aligned to an unseen pull. Ancient beef. Nibiru as Marduk's name. 50 titles including the Crossroads holder. Dual nature. Point and personification. Star embodying God. Solstice link? Calendar anchor, but speculative leap. Entry vector for the body appearing at that sky spot. Convergence theory. Original astronomical Nibiru records a real event. Priests witnessing a brilliant intruder, naming the crossing after the chaos bringer. Gravitational shepherd explains cycles. Bronze Age. Collapse 2300 BCE. Mini Dryas with droughts. Wars. 6th century CE turmoil. Plagues. Dim sun from debris veils. Mini-cycle Ts. 2036 auroras spiking south. Magnetosphere wobbles. Not full return, but close grays. Comets flaring. Holographic seals. Not flat art, but 3D maps. Roll them under laser. Projected orbits emerge. Nibiru looping red. Forbidden forecasts. Vatican Observatory Lucifer Telescope. Yeah, real name. Tracking Planet X. Data blacked out. Your sky check. Apps spotting unexplained movers. Dismissed as satellites, but trajectories wrong. Gateway flip. Not destroyer, but Stargate. Elliptical orbit as wormhole anchor. Anunnaki transiting dimensions. Crossing Thin's veil. Psi surges. UFO waves. Brown dwarf perks. Methane glow. Moon system with biospheres, gold-rich asteroids. Elite prep. SpaceX not Mars rush, but Nibiru rendezvous. Mining preemptively. Mathbite. 3,600-year Saros cycles match eclipse patterns, but extend to perturbations. Neptune's tilt-off by degrees, explainable by passerby. Sitchin flaws. Pluto miscount, but add Moon, Sun. 12 total. Intentional? Auroral codes. Recent lights pulsing Morse. Decoded by amateurs. Return approaches. The intrigue. If gateway, why Deathbringer? Dual use. Entry for gods. Exit for souls. but misalignment triggers resets. Personal hook. Feel the pull? Dreams of red stars? Your DNA resonating with the ferry. As the void stares back, Nibiru blurs lines. Cop or killer, door or doom. The shepherd cometh, debris in tow. Impacts scar the record. Younger Dryas, the smoking gun. Black mats whispering of fire from the ferry's wake. The younger Dryas. Not some gentle climate hiccup or a slow grind of natural cycles, but a sudden, savage bombardment from the heavens, a hail of fragmented fury that turned paradise into permafrost overnight. Imagine standing on a balmy plain 12,800 years ago, mammoths trumpeting under a warm sun, rivers teeming with fish bigger than canoes. Then, in the blink of a geological eye, the sky ignites. Streaks of fire scream down, exploding in airbursts hotter than the sun's core, flash-boiling lakes and igniting forests from horizon to horizon. No warning, no mercy, just a planetary scar tissue we call the black mat, a thin veil of doom draped across continents like a funeral shroud, and the smoking gun, not hidden in myths alone, but etched in ice cores, sediment layers, and the sudden silence of extinct giants. What if this wasn't random bad luck, but a scheduled hit, the debris trail of something ancient and unforgiving sweeping through our orbital lane? Picture the setup first, like a crime scene reconstructed in reverse. For millennia leading up, Earth was thawing from the last big freeze, the Pleistocene winding down, glaciers retreating like defeated armies, sea levels rising a leisurely 400 feet. Mega beasts roamed, woolly mammoths with tusks curved like scimitars, saber-toothed cats prowling prides that could fell a bison in one leap, giant ground sloths taller than giraffes lumbering through redwood-thick forests. Humans? The Clovis culture, master hunters with fluted spear points sharp enough to drop a mastodon from 50 yards. They crossed Beringia on foot, fanned out across the Americas, painting caves and crafting tools in a world bursting with plenty. Temperatures mild, megafauna populations booming, a golden age post-ice, the kind of era that birthed the first whispers of agriculture in fertile crescents. Then, snap, around 10,800 BCE the thermostat shatters. Northern hemisphere plunges, 15 degrees Celsius drop in a decade in some spots, Greenland ice cores showing spikes sharper than any modern warming blip. Europe freezes solid, North America locks under miles of rebounding ice. Asia's monsoons fail. This cold snap grips for 1,200 years, a mini ice age sandwiched between warmer bookends. Abrupt end too. Warming surges back even faster, melting everything in hyperdrive floods. Mainstream once blamed ocean current shutdowns or volcanic veils. But dig deeper, and the impact hypothesis explodes onto the scene like one of those airbursts. A massive comet, perhaps a centaur from the outer fringes, disintegrating under solar stress, shattering into a shotgun swarm of fragments. No lone dinosaur killer crater. That's the clever camouflage. Instead, thousands of high-altitude detonations, each fragment vaporizing on entry, unleashing megatons in kinetic fury. Think Tunguska on steroids, but global. Firestorms racing across tinder dry landscapes, injecting soot and aerosols that blot the sun for years. Initial impact winter, skies black as pitch, temperatures nosediving as photosynthesis halts, then the melt. Laurentide ice sheet, a continent-sized glacier over Canada. Flash, vaporized in patches, trillions of gallons of fresh water gushing into the North Atlantic. The thermohaline circulation, that great ocean conveyor ferrying warm Gulf Stream north, grinds to a halt. Cold locks in, jet streams wobble wild, droughts scour the south while blizzards bury the north. The forensics? Irresistible. The black mat layer, a dark, organic rich band slicing through sediments on 4 continents, dated razor-sharp to the onset. Not gradual soil buildup, a catastrophic deposit, loaded with extraterrestrial fingerprints. Nanodiamonds. Tiny carbon crystals forged only in pressures rivaling stellar cores or impact blasts. Billions per square inch in some samples, impossible from earthly fires. Iridium and platinum, rare on our crust, abundant in space rocks, spiking like a tracer bullet, magnetic microspherules, molten droplets of iron and silica, quenched mid-air, raining down in trillions, melt glass, silica fused at 2,000 degrees, scattered like confetti from hell, charcoal layers thick as carpets, evidence of continent-spanning infernos that charred ecosystems in hours. Below the mat, abundance, pollen from diverse forests, bones of megafauna mid-meal, Clovis tools in hunter camps. Above, void, 35 genera vanish, mammoths frozen with undigested daisies, saber-tooths mid-prowl, dire wolves in packs that never reformed, human populations crater, Clovis points disappear, replaced by scrambling survivors with cruder tech, one of the big five mass extinctions, but pinpointed to a human-era blink. Randall Carlson, that geological renegade with a compass for a moral code, pieces it like a detective novel, decades combing sites from Carolina bays, those elliptical scars pockmarking the eastern seaboard, oriented like shrapnel from a northwest blast, to Greenland's radar-veiled wounds. Hiawatha crater under the ice, 1 kilometers wide, fresh as yesterday in geological terms, iron, rich impactor signature, but classified deeper since discovery. NASA citing national security for blackouts on follow-ups. Why? Because admitting a recent cosmic shotgun rewrites textbooks and doomsday prep. Forbidden maps enter the fray. Carlson's compilations of ancient charts, Plato's Atlantis timelines sinking to the melt pulse. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, 11,600 years old, predating Stonehenge by 6 millennia, carved pillars as comet observatories. Vulture stone panel, constellations marking the torrid stream's progenitor, a warning etched in stone by survivors who saw the sky fall. Pillars aligned to Cygnus, heralding the strike date. Hunter-gatherers building T-shaped monoliths 80 tons each, not primitive, post-apocalyptic engineers, rebooting astronomy to predict the next wave. Black mat as DNA library, speculative fire, organic goo-preserving flash, fossilized microbes, perhaps extraterrestrial hitchhikers, or mutated Earth life. Labs hush results showing anomalous isotopes, carbon-1,2 spikes from vaporized comet organics. Megafauna experiments, Anunnaki tie-in, pre-flood genetic playgrounds, giants herding oversized beasts for labor or food, extinction as collateral in the reset, wiping rival hybrids. Cycle evidence, not one-off. Torrids today pepper us mildly, but dense nodes every few millennia. 2300 BCE Bronze Age collapse, droughts, invasions, mini-bombardment veils, 600 CE dim sun, tree rings starved, debris encore, personal chill. Your backyard soil might hold spherules. Dig a core, microscope hunt, citizen science uncovering the scar. Elite silence. Why no public drills? Bunkers stocked for the echo, seed vaults guarding against the burn. As ice groans in memory, the bombardment whispers. Earth, a target in a shooting gallery, cycles etched in our bones. Lost worlds rise from the thaw, Atlantis and Mu as pre-bombardment empires, their fall the ultimate cover-up. Fast forward through the thawing chaos, past the rise of pyramids and the fall of empires, to a date that hijacked the world's pulse, December 21st, 2012. Not just another winter solstice, but the supposed drop-dead deadline when the Mayan long count flipped its odometer after 5,126 years, unleashing everything from spiritual enlightenment to total annihilation. Remember the buzz? Billboards screaming, "The end is nigh," survival kits flying off shelves, and the internet exploding with Nibiru memes showing a red giant eclipsing the Sunday. Was it all a colossal hoax cooked up by doomsday profiteers, or an orchestrated mind game testing how far fear can bend reality? Let's dissect this prophecy like a viral autopsy, peeling back layers of ancient stone carvings, leaked memos, and elite escape plans that make modern bunkers look like playhouses. What if 2012 wasn't the apocalypse, but a dry run, a psychological beta test for the real event lurking in the wings? Maybe 2029 or beyond. Start with the spark, the Maya, those master mathematicians of Mesoamerica, carving their intricate calendars into stelae that stood like sentinels in the jungle. Their long count wasn't a ticking bomb. It was a grand cycle, 13 backtunes of roughly 400 years each, marking eras like chapters in a cosmic novel. The end date? 4 Ahau 3 Kelvin Zankin, aligning with our Gregorian flip to December 21st. But Maya scholars never predicted doom. They saw it as a transition, the birth of a new sun, a fifth age dawning with potential for renewal or upheaval. Enter the fusion bomb. Zecharia Sitchin's Nibiru crashing the party. His 3,600-year orbit synced loosely with Mayan cycles if you squint hard enough, morphing the planet into a Mayan prophecy fulfillment. Online forums lit up. Nibiru inbound, gravitational mayhem triggering pole flips, supervolcanoes, and crustal displacements that'd make continents dance the cha-cha. The narrative mutated like a virus. Early versions stuck to Sitchin's script, flyby chaos, tsunamis swallowing coasts. But 2012 cranked it to 11, direct collision scenarios where Nibiru smashes Earth like a cosmic cue ball, or subtle alignments opening portals for ascended masters. Proponents cherry-picked galactic alignment with the Milky Way's center, a once every 26,000-year event, amplifying solar flares into humanity. Frying bursts. Comet Elenin, briefly branded Nibiru in disguise before fizzling. Every lens flare in Soho satellite pics became proof, blurry YouTube vids racking millions of views with titles like NASA hides Planet X approach. The psychology? Pure gold for a mind control experiment. Fear cells. Prepper industries boomed. Books like The 2012, story-topping charts, documentaries flooding History Channel. But dig into the underbelly. Claims of government foreknowledge, elite families vanishing to underground cities, Denver airport's creepy murals, apocalyptic horsemen, gas-masked soldiers, decoded as blueprints for the cull, Svalbard's seed vault, not eco-preserve, but post-impact reboot kit, Swiss bunkers in the Alps, New Zealand hideaways for tech moguls, all timed suspiciously with the hype peak. NASA's response? Unprecedented. Usually, agencies ignore fringe noise, but inquiries flooded in. Kids emailing, "Will I die on my birthday?" David Morrison, astrobiologist extraordinaire, fronted videos debunking point by point. No rogue planet. It'd be brighter than Jupiter years out, perturbing orbits we'd measure yesterday. Wise infrared survey scanned the sky. Zilch. Mayan elders laughed it off. Our calendar ends a cycle, like your New Year's Eve. Party time, not end time. Pole shift? Magnetic wonder, yes. Crustal slip, no. Physics forbids rapid flips without liquefying the mantle. Yet the myth adapted. No bang on the date? Retroactive spin. It was spiritual. Consciousness shifted, or aliens intervened. Believers pivoted to portals opening, indigo children awakening. But the real experiment? Social engineering on steroids. How a baseless rumor mobilizes masses, crashes economies in panic buying, tests compliance for real crises. HARP arrays in Alaska, high-frequency transmitters, accused of faking Nibiru signatures, beaming illusions or triggering quakes as dress rehearsals. Elite fingerprints. Bilderberg, 2011 agenda allegedly included 2012 contingency. Leaked emails from Stratfor hacks mentioning Mayan distraction for population control. PSYOPS 101. Flood info space with noise. Discredit truth. Seekers by association. Crop circles spiked pre-2012. Binary codes decoded to warnings. Beware the bearers of false gifts. Orion belt alignments matching Nibiru paths. Post-mortem. World didn't end, but echoes lingered. Trust in institutions eroded. Conspiracy culture mainstreamed. QAnon roots, trace here. Viral misinformation blueprints. Was it scam? Partly. Authors cashed in, cults stockpiled. But deeper. Trial balloon for control grids. COVID parallels. Sudden fear. Compliance tests. Elite exemptions. Tease the upgrade. 2029 whispers. New calendars syncing. Aurora's pulsing codes. The non-end birthed a new paranoia. lost civs rising from the thaw as warnings unheeded, Doomsday's fizzle, but lost empires whisper of tech that defied the stars. Atlantis not sunk but silenced. The Doomsday clock of 2012 ticked past midnight without a bang, leaving behind a hangover of shattered prophecies and widened eyes. But what if that non-event was just the overture, a teaser trailer for the real show? Civilizations that bloomed like bioluminescent algae in the pre-dawn dark, only to be snuffed out by forces that make our nukes look like firecrackers? Atlantis and Mu, not fairy tale islands on a child's map, but sprawling empires of crystal spires and levitating citadels, locked in a shadow war with the Anunnaki overlords who treated Earth like a contested mining claim. Imagine this: underwater ruins off the Bahamas pulsing with orichalcum veins that still glow under black-budget subs, or Pacific seamounts hiding hangar bays for Vimana craft that outflew our jets before the ice even thought to melt. Were these lost worlds the Anunnaki's golden age experiments, human hybrids wielding me-tech against their creators, or rebel strongholds that forced a planetary reset? Kick off with Plato's intel drop, straight from the horse's mouth, or rather, Egyptian priests whispering to Solon around 600 BCE. Critias and Timaeus aren't bedtime stories. They're redacted briefings on a superpower sunk in a single day and night of misfortune 9,000 years prior. Atlantis, larger than Libya and Asia combined, a confederation of kings ruling from a concentric ringed capital, canals spiraling like DNA helices, harbors teeming with triremes that make our carriers blush. Power source? Orichalcum, that reddish metal second only to gold, mined from the earth and cladding temples that fired inner light. Society? Advanced beyond steampunk, hot and cold running water, baths fed by aquifers, stadiums for bull-leaping games that doubled as energy rituals. But the kicker, Poseidon himself founding it, mating with mortal Clito to birth hybrid kings with Anunnaki-esque longevity and psi gifts. Plato's source? Priests of size, guardians of records tracing to Sumer. Wait, Egypt linking back to Mesopotamia? That's the thread. Atlantis as Anunnaki forward base, Poseidon divided by Enki's pet project post-flood, uplifting survivors into a naval empire dominating the Atlantic. Tech transfer, crystal grids harnessing telluric currents, anti-gravity for quarrying megaliths that dwarf Baalbek's trilithon. But hubris creeps. Kings corrupt the me, weaponizing them for conquest. Eyes on the opposite continent. Americas? Enter the adversary. Mu, the Pacific counterpart, a continent spanning landmass from Hawaii to Easter Island, sunk in cataclysmic fury. James Churchward's Narkle tablets, allegedly smuggled from Indian monasteries, paint Mu as the mother cradle, 70,000 years old, 64 million souls under the Ramu emperor. Symbols? The Tau cross, swastika suns, stepped pyramids mirroring Teotihuacan's. Tech? Velixi flying machines, mu metal alloys, shielding against EMPs, gas-filled domes for underwater colonies. Inhabitants? Red-skinned giants with elongated skulls, ray-negative pure strains engineering coral reefs into bioluminescent cities. The war? Not swords and sorcery, but frequency clashes. Atlantis pushing eastward, Mu westward, clashing over ley line nodes. Richat structure in Mauritania, Atlantis's eye-shaped remnant, versus Yonaguni's terraced ziggurat off Japan, Mu's submerged dock. Anunnaki split, Enki backing Atlantis for progressive hybrids, Enlil arming Mu's purists to cull overreach. Weapons, sonic cannons shattering crystal lattices, plasma orbs inducing quakes, heart precursors beaming from orbital platforms. Ignatius Donnelly's 1882 Atlantis. The antediluvian world ignites modern hunt, maps showing ice-free Antarctica with Piri Reis precision, sourced from pre-flood archives. Richat's concentric rings, dead ringer for Plato's capital, salt flats from evaporated inland sea post-younger Dryas tsunamis. Mu's fall. Churchward's tablets detail gas belts exploding, land buckling as magnetic poles lurched. Rapa Nui Moai, Mu refugees staring seaward, hats as resonance amplifiers for Vimana calls. Bimini Road off Florida. Not natural, but Atlantean breakwater. Sonar revealing grid patterns under sand. Cuban pyramids deeper still. Robot subs glimpsing hieroglyphs matching linear Anunnaki role. Overseers turned adversaries. Inanna divided by Ishtar as Atlantean patroness, stealing me for war machines. Enlil deploying Bull of Heaven as orbital strike. Droughts starving Muse fleets. Hybrid legions. Apkallu sages. Fish-suited advisors. As Atlantean commanders. Oannes leading amphibious assaults from Muse sub-bays. Crystal wars. Atlantis' great crystal as superweapon, focusing solar plasma. Muse counter with black stone obelisks absorbing and redirecting. Fallout. Mutual destruction. Nibiru graze, triggering the deluge. Survivors scatter. Viracocha to Andes. Quetzalcoatl to Maya, teaching diluted tech. Pyramid alignments to Orion for Stargate pings. Göbekli Tepe Tai. Pre-flood observatory warning of the war's end. Pillars depicting Vimana dogfights with Anunnaki chariots. Modern echoes. Navy maps of submerged continents, classified since Operation High Jump. Bird's diary hints at inner Earth Mu remnants. Nazi bases chasing Atlantean dye. Glock anti-gravity. Elite hunts. Vatican sourcing Mu tablets for bloodline proofs. Area 50. One reverse engineering crystal shards from Antarctic digs. Your pull. Lucid dreams of underwater bells. DNA activation from sunk grids. Calling descendants home. The war's legacy. Amnesia enforced but cracks show. Sonar pings off Azores. Drone footage of machined walls in the Marianas. As ruins beckon from the deep, consciousness stirs. The true lost tech. Psi mastery that won battles without bombs. The mind's forgotten fire ignites. Gilgamesh's quest a blueprint for awakening the god within. The sunken spires of Atlantis and Mu still shimmer below the waves, their crystal echoes fading like a siren's final note. But rise now, not through water or stone, but inward, into the uncharted nebula of your own mind, where the greatest lost civilization isn't buried under oceans or ice, but locked behind the veil of everyday awareness. This isn't about gadgets or gold. It's the ultimate forbidden tech, consciousness itself, a psychic arsenal that turned thoughts into thunderbolts and dreams into doorways. What if Gilgamesh's frantic chase for immortality wasn't a hunt for herbs or gods, but a shamanic hack to reclaim the god mode we all once ran on, remote viewing across star systems, telekinetic lifts for megaliths, and lucid states that bent time like a river reed? Imagine slipping into a trance tonight and piloting your awareness through ancient battles, downloading Anunnaki blueprints straight from the Akashic cloud. Were the pre-flood masters not aliens or hybrids, but humans unlocked, their fall a deliberate downgrade to keep us docile slaves? What if your random déjà vu is a glitch in the Matrix, a leak from the forgotten OS running in your DNA? Approach this realm sideways, through the lens of a dream journal flipped open under moonlight. Start with the epic's hidden layer, Gilgamesh's Odyssey, as classic shamanic initiation. That wrestling with Enkidu? Ego death in the wilderness, the wild man as shadow self dragged into light. Cedar Forest quest? Visionary plunge, Humbaba's shifting faces the guardians of the threshold, winds from Shamash as ally spirits summoned in trance. Siduri's alehouse advice, feast, love, live, isn't defeatism. It's the integration phase, grounding psychedelic downloads in the body. The dark tunnel through Mount Mashu? Ayahuasca blackness, 12 leagues of void mirroring the brain's descent into theta waves. Jeweled garden, full-blown DMT breakthrough, entities of carnelian and lapis whispering universal codes. Utnapishtim's tale, collective memory dump, the flood as psychic trauma encoded in the subconscious, survivors passing rites to access it. His eternity? Not physical, but non-dual awareness. The far away as higher dimensions. Gilgamesh's sleep failure? Proof the veil's too thick without preparation. Modern equivalents in meditation retreats where egos shatter over 7-day fasts. Vedic yogis knew the playbook. Siddhis, Superpowers from Samadhi states, levitation lagima, invisibility, antardhana, even atom, shrinking anima. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras warn, chase powers, lose enlightenment. But pre-flood, mastery without ego traps. Atlantis crystals as amplifiers, tuning pineal glands to broadcast thought forms. Egyptian Book of the Dead, navigation manual for the bardo. Ka and Ba souls remote viewing the Duat, Mesoamerican twist. Mayan shamans ingesting psilocybin to commune with the 9 lords of Xibalba. Visions syncing Göbekli Tepe's star maps. Muse gas domes, breathwork chambers inducing hyperoxia trances. Divers surfacing with blueprints for Vamana. Anunnaki downgrade. Post-war. Enlil's faction lobotomizing the grid. Flood as EMP. Wiping neural networks. Survivors rebooted with fear-based firmware. Me tech? Not just tools, but mantras. Vibrational keys unlocking chakras. Inanna's theft, a heist of tantric codes. CIA's Stargate project. Declassified goldmine. 70s to 90s. Training viewers to spy on Soviet bases from armchairs. Hits like pinpointing downed planes or hidden subs. Accuracy spiking under hemisync binaurals. Why shut down? Too effective? Or threat to the veil? Monroe Institute's Gateway Experience. Tapes syncing hemispheres. Users bilocating to Mars ruins or Anunnaki councils. DMT breakthroughs. Machine elves as Apkallu sages, handing geometric keys that unfold into cuneiform when sketched. Users report downloading flood memories, arc schematics, Nibiru coordinates, independent trips converging on the same entities, quantum angle, consciousness not brain byproduct, but field effect. Penrose, Hammer-off Orch, Ore theory, microtubules in neurons, computing at quantum levels, collapsing waveforms into reality. Pre-flood diet or environment, ozone-rich air, geomagnetic highs, supercharging the process. Solar flares as triggers, 2030 forecasts massive X-class bursts, pineal calcification dissolving, mass awakenings. Ancient DNA, junk strands lighting up under meditation, CRISPR trials accidentally activating God genes, Ray, negative carriers, higher psi incidents, lucid dreams of star councils, lost rites, Eleusinian mysteries, Kaikion brew inducing ego dissolution, initiates emerging reborn, Egyptian priests staring into black mirrors for scrying, Vatican suppressing texts on Merkaba activation, Gilgamesh's plant, not botanical but endogenous, the thorny herb as pineal secretion, snake theft, the reptilian brain hijacking the flow, modern leaks, Mach-Ultra subprojects on psi weapons, thought projection disrupting electronics, remote influence in interrogations, Ascension 2030, flares aligning with galactic center, thinning the veil, collective DMT release via Schumann resonance spikes. Your experiment. Tonight, binaural beats at 4 Hz. Visualize the jeweled garden. Report back in dreams. The secret's core. We are the tech. Downgraded to forget. Awakening? Not revolution but remembrance. Gilgamesh's walls as metaphors for neural firewalls crumbling. As the inner light flickers, the past awakens. You, descendant of gods, heir to the forgotten fire. The cycle turns, a warning and a call. Are you the sleeper ready to rise, or the echo content to fade? We've journeyed far, from Nibiru's whispering crossroads through the fiery scars of the younger Dryas, the submerged wars of Atlantis and Mu, and the inner galaxies of a consciousness once vast as the cosmos itself. The clay tablets crumble in our minds. Gilgamesh's walls stand eternal in memory, and the Anunnaki's shadows stretch long across the bloodlines that pulse in your veins right now. But as the night exhales its last secrets on this November 2nd, 2025, one truth crystallizes like frost on a forgotten window. History isn't a straight line marching forward. It's a spiral, a cycle of rise and ruin, amnesia and awakening, where the past isn't dead, it's watching, waiting for you to remember. You, listener in the quiet dark, aren't just a descendant of dust and survival. You're the living echo of gods who walked as men, engineered sparks in a slave race that learned to dream of freedom. The ultimate revelation? The Cataclysm wasn't punishment or accident. It was a firewall, a deliberate dimming to keep the workforce in line. But the code is cracking, and your awakening might just be the glitch that reboots the world. Step back and see the pattern woven through everything we've uncovered. Gilgamesh, 2/3 divine, raging against his mortal third. That's you, wrestling the hybrid within. His quest for the plant, stolen by the snake. Your pineal gland, calcified by modern poisons, yearning for the endogenous flood that unlocks the me. Enkidu's wild embrace. The shadow self calling from the wilderness of your subconscious, ready to forge you anew. Utnapishtim's eternal exile. The higher self, far away in dimensions we glimpse in near-death flashes or DMT doorways. The flood, the bombardments, the sunken empires. Not endings but resets in a game where humanity levels up, gets too powerful, and the overlords hit delete. You're the proof. That unexplained pull toward ancient sites, the dreams of flying over crystal cities or conversing with fish-tailed sages. They're not random neurons firing. They're ancestral downloads, DNA strands uncoiling like serpents on a caduceus. Re-negative or not, the Anunnaki didn't vanish. They embedded their essence in elite lines, safeguarding the keys, but also in you, the wildcard descendant who might flip the script. Test it. Meditate on a Sumerian glyph tonight. Feel the hum in your spine. Remote view a star. Many do, hitting coordinates that match Nibiru's projected path. The Stargate files weren't shut down because they failed. They succeeded too well. Viewers piercing veils to Anunnaki councils still debating our fate. The cycles scream it. Younger Dryas is the last big wipe, but mini resets in between. Bronze Age blackouts, Dark Ages dim suns. 2012? A psyop dress rehearsal, teaching the puppet masters how fear herds the flock. But you didn't buy it fully, did you? That's the spark resisting. Solar flares brew for 2030. Geomagnetic storms to dissolve the calcification. Mass psi surges, turning skeptics into seers overnight. Atlantis's crystals weren't tech. They were amplifiers for the mind, tuning collective fields to manifest reality. Muse breathwork domes, training grounds for lucid armies that waged war with thought alone. You're the heir because the gods were us. Unlocked humans who appeared divine to the downgraded. The war with Anunnaki, internal as much as external. Ego factions versus unity consciousness. Enki's mercy, the compassionate code winning out, leaking upgrades through shamans and mystics ever since. Gilgamesh's walls, neural barriers in your brain, built to contain the flood of knowing, but crumbling under curiosity's siege. The call from the past, awaken gently, or the cycle repeats. Build your inner arc. Knowledge as pitch, sealed timber, meditation as the cube that rides the waves. The elites prep bunkers for the physical storm. You prep the mind for the revelation. Nibiru approaches not as destroyer, but catalyst, gravitational or conscious, pulling the veil thin. You are the descendant because the story loops back to now. Comment below, where the night finds you, what hour cradles your thoughts, which secret stirred your blood tonight. Hit like if this journey lit a fire in your shadows. Subscribe and bell for the next descent. We've only scratched the clay. Share to wake another sleeper. Together, we rewrite the code. As the stars fade into morning's glow, remember, the past warns, but it also empowers. You're not slave or victim. You're the God awakening, the cycle's breaker. The Anunnaki watch, but so does your higher self. Choose the light within, and the dawn is yours. This is Mr. H, fading into the mysteries we carry forward. Sleep deep, dream true. The gods await your return. Mystery history for sleep, signing off until the next veil lifts.